All right, ladies and gentlemen. Ooh, that was loud. We have 5 o'clock. I will call the regular scheduled town council meeting for the month of August to order and apologize for the delay in this meeting due to the storm event. And I hope everybody fared well with that. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Miss Beth. Or actually, I'm sorry, Councilwoman Garden Schmidt.
For all those who would like to join us in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we gather tonight, Father, in your name. We ask for your blessings to be on our town, on our citizens, Lord, and for those that are residents of our town that are away, fighting for our country right now and elsewhere, Lord. We ask that all decisions being made tonight will not be light in heart, but that we have considered deeply what you would want for our town. In your name we pray with thanks. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Miss Carrie Speck, would you mind joining me up front, please? Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Carrie is our town paralegal, but she does way more than that. She's probably one of our best examples of customer service, both internal and external. She doesn't shy away from any job, whether it's in her job title or not. She jumps to it. She serves with excellence and I think reflects the best of what our town staff is. And recently she was at, sorry, I have to read this one. She was at a national conference. Let's see. The National Association of Legal Assistants, and she won the 2024 Affiliate Award. So please join me in recognizing her.
Next, if I could have the Jody Park tennis team come up. Whereas the Jody Park Racketeers 14U junior tennis team has displayed remarkable talent, dedication, and sportsmanship throughout the season. And whereas the team has achieved an extraordinary milestone by completing an undefeated season in the Low Country Division. And whereas the Jody Park Racketeers have demonstrated exceptional skill and perseverance, culminating in their victory at the state championship held on July 20th through the 21st. And whereas this impressive achievement reflects not only the hard work and commitment of the players, but also the unwavering support and guidance of their coaches, families, and the Somerville community. Now, therefore, the mayor and council of the town of Somerville do hereby proclaim our heartfelt congratulations and recognition of the Jody Park Racketeers tennis team state champions.
We would be wrong not to put out when the Racketeers wrapped it up, going undefeated and then winning the state championship, reflecting the best of Somerville. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you for being an example of what Somerville is in spaces that they probably think we're pretty ho-dunk and rural, but guess what? Y'all went up there and y'all took names. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's okay.
Next, we have approval of minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I move for approval of previous minutes, items A, B, and C.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of previous meeting minutes A, B, and C. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
All right, for public comment for items on the August 15th agenda, I did not have anyone sign up, but I did have one email to me that I said that I would read aloud. This is from Peter Gorman and South Magnolia Street. I urge you to support an amendment to the current BAR ordinance that only requires 3 of the 7 members to live within the historic district. Ideally, it should be all members, but increasing it to 5 of 7 would be an improvement over the current threshold. It is critically important that BAR members not only understand the architecture, but the culture of our historic district. The best way to accomplish this goal is to live within it and experience it. And that's all I have for public comment.
Thank you, ma'am.
We have no petitions, so under pending bills and resolutions, second and final reading of an ordinance to annex TMS number 14508000022, located at the end of West Smith Street and totaling approximately 13.5 acres, currently zoned TRM Transitional Residential in Dorchester County and will be zoned MFR Multifamily Residential upon annexation into the town of Somerville's municipal limits.
Mayor, I make a motion that we postpone this until February 2025.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to postpone until February of 2025. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Under introduction of bills and resolutions, a resolution adopting the employee handbook.
I make a motion that we move this to the next month council meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to move this to next month in September. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Under miscellaneous, discussion of a request for the mayor and council members' appointments to committees.
Councilwoman Tiffany Johnson Wilson, I know that this was something that you added
Right.
to our agenda.
I believe right now, there's some of the boards that, and committees that each member of council gets an appointment to, and some of them that they don't. And when there's 7 members, I believe that the UDO and the ordinances, should read the same, where that each member of council should get, an appointment. So I'd like to make a motion that that is consistent and each member of council gets an appointment.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion and a second. Discussion.
The only question I have is how does that work for boards where there's only 5 members?
This, Councilwoman, you were intending to make all boards and commissions have 7
7
members, correct? As a part of this?
Well, I wasn't planning on that. I would refer that to Lisa. Is that right now? How does that work? As far as,
Mr. Mayor and Mr. Administrator and Council. We have some of the boards now that each member of the council selects a person whose district or her district to serve. And then the mayor gets one that gives us 7. I think that's an egalitarian system that works well. I know some of the boards like the BZA or whatever, we have a limited number of people because of the qualifications that are necessary. But I think as far as we can go and make it fit, so everybody feels that they've got their district being represented, I think it makes sense to have the 7.
Ms. Schuler, I was going to ask, how many boards do we have that have 5 members? Do you know? Just one? Just one. Okay. And how is that one appointed? Okay.
Right.
So the council as a whole appoints.
So the rest of them are 7, Jesse? The rest of them are seven. That's correct. Yeah, no, sorry.
No, it's all right. Yes, the BZA was recently changed to 7 members. So yes,
Okay.
all of them have 7 except for the Tree Protection Board, which just has 5.
So if I may amend my motion, then if I can amend my motion that all boards and committees have 7 members and each member of council get an appointment to each board and committee.
That's what I second.
Okay, with that motion in second, I'm just going to look at council before we have any further discussion. This is an ordinance amendment and we would, or no?
Yeah, it would have to go through the.
So what
UDO
we were
ordinance amendment.
requesting is essentially for Corporation Council to produce an ordinance amendment that would
That's-
communicate that for us to vote on, and we'd have 2 readings on that.
Yeah, it would also have to have a public hearing, just as any.
And a public
or,
hearing.
I will say that it already says all board commission members shall be appointed by the mayor and town council, with the mayor and each council member making one appointment following procedures set forth in town code, section 2-160.
Which
So-
is conflicting with that is conflicting with the ordinances at this time.
Which ordinance?
Right, I'm saying the UDO already reads that way.
Right, the
Correct.
UDO reads that
It's the
way, but
ordinance.
Right.
The code.
Yes.
Right.
Code of ordinances.
So if it's not the UDO that's being amended, that would not require a public hearing. It's only if the UDO is amended, but if she wants, if y'all want to add 2 more members to the Tree Protection Board, then that would require a UDO amendment. So I just need clarification on what's being done. Thank you.
Do you often lack a quorum on a tree committee? Okay. But you do have, it is difficult to find 7 people who meet all the qualifications. Okay.
The idea of this is to make it where each council member gets an appointment to each board.
I understand that completely, and I'm not opposed to it either. I just with 5 people, I think we all get a say in everything anyway. Even if we bring a name up for appointment, it still has to be approved by council, is my understanding. So we're all getting a say essentially, in that regard on all of them. And other than that, I don't have a problem with any of it. But later, I'm just throwing 2 cents out there on the floor.
I could speak again. What makes sense is we've currently got 6 districts. Maybe at some point in the future, we may go to add another 2 districts and have 8. But what's important is people live in different parts of the town. And it doesn't make sense to have 3 or 4 people making decisions about the whole town when each portion of the town or district has got a representative. So I think we need to, be cognizant of that because that's important to people. Everybody feels that they should be treated the same way, regardless of where they live or what district they're in.
Yeah, thank you, Councilman.
So if I'm understanding, the motion is to make the code of ordinances match the UDO.
Mhm.
Okay. Very good.
Okay.
And thank you for pointing that out, Councilwoman.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with that, I'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. And Corporation Council, I guess in September, you'll bring the first reading to us.
The only thing that concerns me is that under 2-160, the mayor and full council appoints members to the boards, commissions, and committees. And actually, what we have historically done, each council member says, I want Joe Doe as my nominee, and then that's confirmed by council. I'm gonna have to check and see if council can delegate their authority to one person. So
I think that's consistent with what everybody wants is just to have council approved, but each person have the right to name a person to a board or commission with council approval.
we work.
That's the
Well,
way I understand it.
If that's the case, then the UDO needs to be amended and not the code.
Our desire is to make our ordinances and the UDO
Mirror, yeah.
allow for each member to have an appointee approved by council, is the way I understood it. Is that correct?
Yes.
And
The problem with that, Mr. Mayor, this is my third time speaking, is that the council member finds a person who's qualified or they believe is qualified to serve. And then it comes, it says, I make this appointment, then the council votes. And if he doesn't get full votes, then his pick doesn't get the job.
That is correct.
Yeah,
I do think that that's
that's
a good safety
well, yeah, but
mechanism, I believe,
it can also
for,
create some bad feelings amongst the council if their person is denied. So, you know, the way we've been doing it, I think it's worked quite well. Not like, I hope that we can keep going that way we've been doing.
And I believe how we've been doing it with your appointment is how we're talking about continuing to do it for all of them.
I know majority rules, but, somebody's got to look out for the little people.
agreed. The way I understand it, we've requested an ordinance revision. We'll have a draft provided for first reading. We'll have a second reading, correct?
Mhm.
So we have time to refine that and have further discussion.
Oh, I'm not sure. We want 7 members on 3 committees.
Yeah, that's going to be a separate ordinance. So there would actually be two ordinances. Yes.
That's what we voted for.
Well, that's what the motion
Yeah.
is. Yeah, hasn't been voted
Each-
yet.
No, we voted.
We voted for all boards and commissions.
And excuse
Yeah,
me,
we
Mr. Mayor,
did vote.
and I believe in the past, there was one other committee that we didn't have anybody else apply for, and which might be the same in the tree committee circumstance. And in that case, there would just be an open position or perhaps 2 open positions until we could get them filled. Correct?
Correct.
I guess that would, the only thing I see coming up is it would be a little more difficult to get to that quorum if we were short, if we had a 7-person on the tree committee that, because now we have a 7-committee person, we got to have 4 members present for the quorum, so that could cause us some issues with our tree committee, and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong here, but that's probably our most active board that we have that goes out and meets and reviews these trees that, you know, I guess on a weekly basis, probably, if I had to guess. Twice a month, okay. Right, yeah.
And I would think that 3 botanists agreeing can protect our trees. I mean, they're either a danger or dying.
Mhm.
That's,
And I think also just for the sake of talking, I've talked a lot now too, Mr. Brown, so, we're just asking our corporate counsel and our planning director to draft an ordinance. We got plenty of time to flesh this out in the next 2 months, so we can probably just let's see what they bring us and move along.
That's right.
You have what you need, Mr. Parker? All right.
I don't think y'all voted.
Yeah, we
We did. Yep.
we voted.
oh,
We voted.
Discussion of changing the composition of the Board of Architectural Review.
I make a motion to amend the ordinance so that 5 of the 7 members of the Board of Architectural Review be residents of the historic district.
That's a motion. I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
yes, sir. I think the historic district belongs to the town, to all members of the town. Many people outside of that area have moved here because of that. And to have 5 members from within that is kind of a quorum of its own. And if we're going to appoint people, then each of us should be able to appoint somebody.
Now, the bar is just for the residential area.
Right.
The DRB is for the commercial area that all residents use.
Correct.
Okay.
I agree.
The
with you.
bar also addresses commercial properties as well.
Commercial area in the historic district is covered by the BAR, not the DRB.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good with three.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that point, Councilman Jackson. I agree with you on that. I mean, we are a representative of an entire town that, you know, all enjoy this, the historic district, that all benefit from the historic district. And, you know, the only thing I thought of for that was, you know, it may be difficult to get 5 members to 5 citizens to volunteer to the BAR from that live in the historic district if we put that on there. So even if we were to consider it, I would suggest some type of caveat that allowed, if we didn't have enough people apply, we could still fill it with that. That's my only concern. But I like I said, I hadn't thought about your point, and I think that's a very valid point as well.
And 3 people is almost a quorum anyway. So the people living in the historic district definitely have the major say in what happens.
Based on all of the applications that I reviewed to the bar, there are plenty of applicants
Okay.
in the historic district
Okay.
to represent that area.
Any other discussion, council members? I'll point out that we currently have 5 members on the BAR from the historic district currently. So that naturally occurred, probably based on the interest in the applicants. Considering the fact that we have just asked for an ordinance change that each member be able to appoint someone, I do think we may be in conflict here with some of these requirements. So anyway, I'm not certain, hadn't really thought of it in that level. And Councilman Jackson, the historic district is definitely an asset within the town, for the entire town, and it's something we need to take exceptional care of. So I agree with that. All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Presentation and discussion of reassessment calculations.
Ms. Rhonda.
Good evening. I hope y'all won't send me away if I tell you, I think I've been dreaming about these numbers and these spreadsheets for quite a while. There's a lot of details still. We're going to revisit them from Finance Committee, which was almost 2 weeks ago. I spent a lot of time with Johnette last Thursday, and we went through the entire model again, made some adjustments as far as to make sure the TIF base was done right, make sure the local option sales tax wasn't skewing things. And when we redid the model, the rollback rate came to 63.8, which is a little bit lower than what we presented at the Finance Committee meeting. So I wanted to just make sure you were all aware of that. I want to explain a little bit about how the calculation was done, just kind of go back to basics and talk about that. The prior year levy is the levy that the county made, okay? To obviously every year, the county's not going to get 100% collection. I think at one point Dorchester County might have 95. Charleston, I think, was less than that, but it's going to be something less. So for me to get cash in the bank, I've got to bill out a little bit more than what I actually need or collected last year to be whole and equal. So that prior year levy includes 5% for basically the collection percentage. The assessment minus the growth is the new assessments for Dorchester County minus the growth, which is the new construction, the transfers, some of the additions to properties in our district. It also includes a very small amount of an assessment loss. Obviously, you know that people can appeal their assessments. You know, in a non-reassessment year, I believe when I talked to the assessor's office, it's certainly a lot lower in those years than it will be in the year of reassessment. So all I could really document was a very small 0.25% loss that I incorporated there. So the rate for each county then comes up to 64.4 for Dorchester, 61.6 for Berkeley, and 68.4 for Charleston. we can't have a different millage for each county, so it gets blended. And the blended rate is based on the percent of assessment from the prior year. And those are the percentages you see, 73.6, 21.9, and 4.5. So that is a weighted average calculation that comes up with the millage of 63.8. If you take that, multiply times the assessment, the revenue numbers are in the very bottom line. There's a note that we can talk about later, but if we were to roll back to 63.8, we would lose some revenue that is now attributed to the TIF base. So in our general fund, the TIF base is part of it. So it would be basically at a lower amount because that base does not grow in the general fund. That is pretty much static. So it does not grow. Everybody on board with that? Okay, next. I wanted to just kind of show you, demonstrate with Dorchester County being our largest, certainly tax base, what the assessments kind of look like from year to year. So you have a breakdown from 23-24 to 24-25. I have highlighted in yellow the vehicles, the Oak Brook TIF, and the Midtown TIF. Those are categories that have very little growth. So even though our real estate may grow at a very high rate, those pieces of our portfolio or our tax base do not grow. So the real estate grew almost 13% overall. It was almost like a 5% increase. That makes sense? I also wanted to show you on the right-hand side is the CPI. This is published by the state of South Carolina. It's sent to us every year. It's part of our allowable calculation for millage increase. So we're allowed in any year the CPI plus another percentage for how much our population grows. But this is also the reason that is a measure for millage is because that's how much the state estimates cost of goods and services to go up in a year. So in this 5-year period, cumulative, roughly 20%. I think we've all experienced the increase in the cost of services and cost of goods. So we're looking at an average of about 4%. In a reassessment year, it honestly is difficult for me to understand. Like my house is going up 15%. So for these last 5 years, I haven't paid one more dime, in taxes and all of these years. So I'm paying 15% more this year. Cost, I believe, has gone up more than that in that 5-year period. Any other questions on that? Observations? I wanted to stop.
Oh, no, you're good.
This analysis that you did, the percentage net increase of 5%, are you basing this on historical trends here in the town?
No, that's just looking at the data from 23 to 24 to 24, 25. If you compare the bottom number increase, it's a 5% increase.
But you're going into the fiscal year of 25 and estimating some of these numbers.
This is what Dorchester County estimated and gave to, estimated. This is their dollars for reassessment. These are not really estimates on their side. Vehicles are a little bit of an estimate because I don't know when anybody's going to go buy a new car.
Right.
But that's, we've had a small increase, but not much. And cars depreciate. So I think that kind of balances out.
We have the ability to approve a CPI and a
Yes.
growth factor,
Yes.
but it doesn't have to happen at the same time that we approve the millage. Is that correct?
Once our millage is set, it's set for the year. So, but in any 1 year, we're entitled to CPI plus growth, which growth is small, to be added to our millage. You can retain what they call a millage bank and you can accumulate those numbers. I've never seen it very important here because we certainly don't want to and haven't, gravitated toward our highest available. We have more available than what is available in the current year, but we wouldn't tap into that. Did I answer your question?
And This CPI number is given to you by,
The South
This-
Carolina Fiscal Affairs Authority. It's sent every year to all municipalities, and you can go and see, there's a table of all the municipalities of what the CPI is and what the growth is based on the population. And so that's that's the state saying to the government, that's the most you can increase because this is a limit. And that's a percent. So the percent is calculated as a percent of your present millage.
and so all of this business, personal property, real property, all of this has to be just estimated assessment basis based on 24, 25. They were given to you, correct?
They're giving it to me, but it's been appraised. They've had appraisers go out and appraise every piece of property.
Mhm.
Now, what they do, I don't know, but that's what they're charged with.
The budget that we recently passed, did it take into account reassessment?
Not entirely. I projected at that time when we were doing the budget, I projected 11% for real estate over our prior year budget. I was coming in ahead, so I just went and looked this afternoon, and our budget is for real estate and vehicles is like 5.5% over what we actually collected this year. Which is not terrible. No, it's not unreasonable.
Right.
And actually growth overall for us would probably exceed a little bit of that. There's a good bit of that growth in the TIFs.
Right.
The Midtown TIF and the Oak Brook TIF are some of the fastest growing areas of our county. We don't get to capture that growth in our general fund. Anything else on this slide? Move on. I'm not rushing anybody.
No.
It's a lot. Okay, this slide shows kind of a comparison of our rollback millage, where we are now, which captures a portion of the CPI growth, CPI and growth that we're allowed by the state, and then our maximum of 66.7. So again, the prior year levy from the county is on the first line, a 5% collection to make sure that if we are dependent on that whatever our collection is will equal that amount. And then our levy from growth. So when you kind of look at it, if we were basically at ground zero, rolling back to exactly what our revenue was, the growth is what we would have to live on. So, 699,000, 723,000 would be all the increase that we would typically be entitled to. Because I wanted to kind of put previous year in a spot so you could compare it to where we're going to be with the new assessment. So
Rhonda, with that, it's so 699 levy from growth, 699, 723. That's just living on growth. Is that correct?
That's correct. And
Okay.
you're entitled to that. You don't have to count that in the
Right.
rollback, which I did not.
That's right.
But
So-
I needed, and I'll show you how that, so that the assessment from that 699 is actually included on the line item below when it said estimated generated from new assessments. So I feel like the rollback calculation is actually correct, because if you look at the difference between the 21,094 and the 21,086, it's pretty darn close. And I know you'd have to take out the growth, but that is, that's a pretty close match. That gives me comfort that the rollback calculation is accurate. So based on the assessments from Dorchester County, Berkeley County, and Charleston County, this is the revenue this is the most revenue we would ever get, is the 21,094 under a 63.8 scenario, 21,821,744 for 66, and then a little over 22 if we were at 66.7. So the point I really want to make by that is that this number will not go up. there's no Rhonda was conservative and we get more than this dollar amount in. This is the most it's ever going to be. These are what on the tax bills. The only thing that can happen from here is 6% property changes to 4%. Somebody's going to appeal their property and the assessment goes down. A commercial property changes to a nonprofit status and we get sunk. You know, so, you know, I've heard it from many of the auditors when I always want to know what they billed out in October. What did you bill out in October? And they're like, don't really worry about that because it's going to change. But it's only going down from there. So I just want to make sure we understand that. The next section numbers are our budget. So again, this is a budget for all those tax items of 18 million, and these are the same across all, because I want to give you something to compare to. This is what our budget is. So it doesn't change. It's not going to change if our millage changes. The FY 24-25 budget for real estate taxes, again, you've got that collection percentage and you've got a sales tax rebate. And let me explain why I included that in there. Because cash that comes in from Berkeley County and Charleston County are net of a sales tax discount. So in order to compare my budget number to the actual levy, which is not including the discount, I have to add that back. So we're looking at apples and apples. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. And just to give you an example on in Berkeley County, $185,000 house, the taxes due to Somerville are $489. The sales tax credit is $268. They only pay me $230. So, I mean, that's great for them. But that 2.2 we have, but we have it in another general ledger line item. So I just wanted to kind of demonstrate how that looks and for you to be able to compare apples to apples. At the 63.8 level, we would be under budget by 655,000 at a minimum. At 66, we would be just over at 72,000, which would be the most. And at 66.7, we would be over by 300. And of course, we've talked about other factors regarding our budget. You know, we have a 2 million fund balance usage and the appeal and assessment changes. I have no idea. I was hoping to get some estimate from the county on how they felt about reassessment year. But I don't know. So it could be anywhere from, you know, 1 million to 2 million. I think I figured it was roughly 100,000 per 200,000 for every 1% that of appeal is what it would be in revenue.
What line are you figuring that's over under budget number in the budget that we just completed?
So this 655, I think, is the 21,094,352 minus the 21,749,425.
Right, I see that, but are you talking about from these numbers, are you taking any of the budgets into account of the budget that we just set? The budget that we just had, the budget meeting? Are you taking any of those factors into these numbers at all?
Yes, ma'am. The 18,618,500 is the revenue number.
Right. For all three, for where?
For 24-25.
For all three counties?
No, yes, for all three counties, yes. That's correct. Any questions on that part?
And that's just tax revenue
That's
that you're,
just tax
yeah,
revenue, yes.
that you're saying will be under budget that much.
And that's without considering what we're gonna lose due to the cyber attack and the recent storm that's gonna be added, taking away from our general fund. And we will probably have another, if not more than that storm, because usually they go north early in the year and start coming west as September goes. So,
I don't want to hear that.
That's me knocking on wood, by the way.
I was here for Hugo, I remember.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, the numbers at the budget retreat, the property tax numbers for the three counties were taken conservative revenues of property tax revenues for the three counties, correct?
Yes,
That
it
we
was about,
discussed.
it was, like I say, it was 11% over for real estate. It was 11% over our prior year budget. But when I just looked at the numbers, it's about 5.5% over what we actually collected in FY '24.
Right, at this time, 5.5% at this time.
So, yeah, so FY '24 really shouldn't change much because it's done.
Mhm.
So the budget number that I have is about 5.5% over the FY '24 level of actual.
And so but this is just property tax. So there were other, there were other
Oh, yeah.
sources of
Yes,
revenue. Yeah.
Yes, no, absolutely.
Our other sources of revenue don't change very much though. Correct.
No, the
I
only
mean, they're not
category,
changed this year anyway, so
pardon?
they're not affected by the reassessment or anything. So it's just what they were is.
That's correct. I mean, business licenses are our other, bigger
Yeah.
bucket.
Did we adjust business? How much did we go up on business license projection wise over actuals last year? Do you remember? I know, I'm sorry. for
That's
the-
fine. I was, I don't know if I have actuals. Give
Give you multiple choices.
let's see. 13. 13.2 is what we budgeted and actual. I don't have my actual number. I thought I did. I must have.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things this
Yeah.
isn't taken into consideration.
Right. I mean, we do have multiple. We have building permits. We have,
We have more
Parks and-
residential.
Parks and Rec. We do have multiple.
I mean, more people building
Oh,
and
yeah.
buying
Yeah, that's
and
right.
developing and annexations and all that stuff.
Growth.
Right.
Okay.
The-
Everybody good on this?
No,
No?
no.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to understand, because if I don't understand it, I would venture to guess most people in this room don't understand it. So if the current year budget did not take into the account reassessment, and if 63.8 reflects a new revenue neutral millage, how are we $655,000 under budget if we adopt a rollback millage?
So what I meant by I didn't take in a reassessment, I didn't know what those numbers were. But obviously looking at 11% over a prior year budget there was some indication that we would have some growth from reassessment in
So-
that number.
So you assumed 11% from reassessment
Yeah,
and other
well-
growth, I mean, transfer of properties and new development, et cetera.
yes, so everything.
Annexations.
So I took 11% of prior year I thought was really aggressive.
If this were not a reassessment year, would you have picked that same 11% number?
Probably not,
Okay.
probably not. It's hard to know, what's in the TIF, what's not in the TIF, where the growth is until they give you the number. This is one of those rare years where you know what the numbers are now. We didn't know it in May, we didn't know it in June, but we know what they are now. Anything else on that?
Would you say that we have had a consistent tax revenue increase each year, even when the millage did not increase? Do you believe that?
Um, I don't know if the rate of increase, we've had an increase because we have, we have
Tax
growth.
revenue.
We have growth, yes, but I don't know the rate. I haven't calculated the rate of increase each year to see what what it looks like as far as that goes.
But the actual revenue increased, right?
Yeah, year over year it does, yes. That's correct.
And I think we need to remember the last 3 years, we had an extra $7 million from the federal government that we used to balance our budget. And we still took 2 million out of our general fund. So if things happen to the town and all, we have less of a cushion to take care of emergencies or whatever. And just the fact, we were given $7 million and we're using 2 million out of general funds. We are losing money. And we've got large capital coming into public safety, which I think is extremely important, and we don't have a way to pay for it.
When did that 7 million come in and get spent? In what fiscal year did all of that come in and get spent?
I think the first part came in 21, did come right for it, and then half of it came in 22, and we're still, we're almost to the end where we're still spending it down.
Yeah.
We did use
We
some.
have very little left, I think, in this last budget cycle. like
Yeah,
Very,
that-
less than a few $100,000, as
That's
I remember it.
That's correct.
Any other questions on this slide? You have one more?
So in this new budget cycle that we just finished, we didn't estimate any of that $7 million, correct?
N-
No, because I think there was
No.
438,000 in the last budget cycle that we used of that 7 million. That was the last of it.
Yes, there were a few projects or initiatives that we were going to continue to use that funds for through the end of September, October. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it was one-time expenses,
Mm.
if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and we did have a good bit of capital that we funded out of there, fortunately. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, which I think, yes, sir.
Members of the council get a copy of what you're displaying here.
Oh, yes, sir. Absolutely. I'd be happy to. I need all the help I can get on a spreadsheet, Ms. Brown. The next slide is for illustrative purposes, what can happen, to revenue with, appeals. I doubt we'd be looking at 10%, but if we're looking at 5%, these are just a little bit of what could happen, to revenue. Like I say, I think it's 200,000 for every 1% of your assessed value that would get, that may have a appeal request. And that doesn't mean they'll get, if they can appeal, but I don't know what Dorchester County would do. That's totally out of our hands. That's up to the assessor in Dorchester County. Any questions about this?
Has Dorchester County set their millage yet?
Just emailed it this afternoon again. I have not heard.
And what's the deadline for us to report our millage to the counties?
The 27th of August is Berkeley County. I asked Denise that. I haven't got an answer on what she wanted for Dorchester County. Our fees are all in, so they should be just waiting on our millage. Okay, next slide. And the next slide, we went over this a little bit. I certainly adjusted the numbers to what we're talking about tonight. But if we're comparing the tax rates on a $250,000 home for 2023, 2024, and you have no increase in the home value, the difference is under the 63.8, you pay 22 less. Under the zero, of course, at 66, and then you pay $7 more if we're out at the max. If it's a 10% increase in a $250,000 home, you would pay, 4180 more in 2020 under the 63.8 and 66 more if it were, the 66 mils. And of course, the difference between the 63.8 and the 66 is 2420 for a $250,000 home.
I don't know that you can find anything for $250,000 anymore.
You're probably correct. You would know. On next slide, please. On the $500,000 home, there was 0% increase in home value. Obviously, it goes down with the 63.8 and goes up slightly with the 66.7. 15% increase. There would be $147 increase with 63.8 and $198 increase for 66. And again, the difference in those two numbers are the $50.60. Trying to spare y'all the need to do math. Any questions on any of those? Any calculations? Anything, any previous slides I can go back to?
Rhonda, I want to, I was just going to thank you real quick because you put a lot of effort. I'm glad we had 2 weeks between our finance in this. You put a lot of effort into distilling it down into more consumable bites. And I just want to thank you for that. I know there's probably more questions, but I really want to thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome. It's important to me. I need to understand it and those kind of, like that too. And it kind of, these are not just numbers, they're people's houses and, you know, they're important to all of us. Any other questions? I can sit down, I can come back up, I can.
Any questions, ladies and gentlemen on council?
Thank you, Rhonda.
Thank you, Ms. Rhonda.
Mr. Mayor, I would move we maintain our millage at 66 mils. And any excess that's generated throughout the course of the year go towards the funding gap that we had in the fiscal year 24-25 budget, where we allocated $2 million from our fund balance to cover our balanced budget.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to maintain the previously approved 66 mils from our budget ordinance. Discussion.
Yeah, I just want to be clear that if we approve the same millage, we are in effect approving a tax increase. And so I don't want us to pass the same millage and say we didn't increase taxes because we are in fact increasing taxes. Am I incorrect in that?
I'd say that's correct. I think that right now it wasn't budgeted and, you know, I can't vote on this at this time. I don't feel like we use this at the budget and, if it's needed and necessary, when we set the budget this year, we did get a lot of capital purchases done. We gave good raises to the town. We got a lot of great purchases. We got sidewalks and we're headed in the right direction. We've got a great vision plan coming, some strategic annexation, some other ways to generate a lot of income. And I don't think it's raising taxes right now.
Yeah, I agree with it. We spent $2 million. We did not have a balanced budget. We were $2 million short.
I agree with all that, Mr. Mayor, as well. I can tell you, speaking as a taxpayer as well, the last thing I ever want to do is pay taxes in general at all. Zero. Out of all the taxes that we all pay throughout the course of a year, I think that our local government is where I see the biggest benefit and where I don't mind paying taxes as much. It doesn't hurt nearly as bad. And it's because we see the results of what we're paying out. I see fire trucks running up and down the road. I see police cars running up and down the road. I see great, skilled, highly skilled employees that we have working for the town that we want to maintain, that we have struggled to keep over the years because, let's face it, we're at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to what we pay our employees. Yes, we did give them a good raise. I can't argue that one bit, but all we did is get a little bit closer to where to being out in the cellar with our comparatively in the Tri-County area, which is, it's not something I'm proud of when I sit up here on the seat. We've got a lot to do. We back in, I think it's February, we sat here for about 2 hours one night, listening to public comments about how bad we need sidewalks in this town. Yes, we did budget $500,000 for sidewalks this year, but we dropped all that on one project. And it was a project we've had funded for years. When it costs us $700,000 plus to pave 1 mile of sidewalk, and we're budgeting $500,000 for a sidewalk, then, we're never going to catch up like that. So when I look it down the road and I see the things we need to do, I don't know how we can continue to try to operate on less than what we need to operate to provide our citizens the services they are essentially. I hate using the word demanding, but after I left that meeting that night 4 months ago in February, I felt like they were demanding sidewalks. So it was a very exciting night, but I worked for this town for a lot of years. I was responsible for probably, I don't know, a quarter of the town's operating budget for 10 plus years. I struggled to keep employees. I struggled to keep equipment, to keep our firefighters even wrapped in basic equipment throughout those years. And that was one of the reasons I decided I want to run for council, to make sure that I can step up for the people for our citizens, for one, that deserve top tier service and they expect and essentially demand top tier service. And that comes at a cost. Talking about taxes, I pulled my property taxes that I pay every year. You can go on Dorchester County's website at the tax off, the treasurer's office, go on the treasurer's website and pull up anybody's, not just mine, you pull up anybody's tax records. And I look back I've lived in my current residence since 2020. I moved in there at the end of 2019. So 2020's tax year, I paid $904 of town taxes for the year. $904. That's it. That's what I paid. There's regime fees that are higher than that, I think, in neighborhoods around the Tri-County, honestly. And for that $904, I get top tier service. When council decided to raise millage in 2020, the end of 2022 for the 2023 tax year, that 11% increase that we all talked about, I went up to $1,003 that year. So I went from 904 to 1,003. And I mentioned last week at the finance committee that we've run the gauntlet of where we've set our millage rate, and I've got this little sheet, right? It's a cheat sheet that I love. It's Dorchester County's historical millage sheet that shows where we've been since 2004. We've been from 80 mills in 2004 all the way down to 56 mills, which we realized we couldn't work on, so we raised it. Then we tried to reduce it again, realized we couldn't work on that, so we raised it, and we raised it again. And so, just throughout all those changes from our millage rate and for my taxes, my personal taxes, a property that I lived prior to where I live now, very similar in value. In 2012, I paid $788 for that year's taxes. So over the course of the last better 12 years, I've gone up roughly, what's quick math, 788 to 1,000, that's $212 over the course of that 12-year period, what I'm paying in taxes. That's right around 2% a year, if you're wondering, of what my property taxes have gone up in this town. And I think 2% is what our federal government is or what our Fed is trying to get to for inflation. So I'd say all in all, what we're doing right now, even if we go up to, if this is approved, I'm going to go up $140 for next year. I think is what I've calculated. My property is going to go up 14%, based on the assessment letters I got from the county. Even that, I'm like 2.5% for the past 20 years, a year, 2.5% a year for 20 years for some of the best services I could ever ask for in this town.
Well, you're a lot better than me. I want your tax bill. Mine's went up a lot more than that.
That's a single family owner occupied home. That's all I've ever had in this town. I haven't done to where I own multiple properties in this town. My parents do, and they raise Canaan all the time about it, but they also understand it's part of the game. They don't have to own those properties, but they choose to. So
Yeah,
all in all of that to say, I think we've raised taxes, lowered taxes, moved them all around. We've never allowed us to have a consistent data point to know where we can plan this, our town, to move our town forward. Because we've changed our monies all over the place. And all said, for the individual single-family taxpayer, for their tax bill to change $220. That just seems, we're cutting off our nose in spider's face to plan for our future. Now I'm done.
and Mayor,
And-
I'd just like to say that as Councilman said, we paved the sidewalk. On that long list of bicycle committee, we didn't touch it. That wasn't on the list. We have done none of it. And the citizens are complaining those are safety issues. So are we going to vote to move forward and do those or not? We've got that not paid for. We got a safety complex not paid for. I don't get it. And we spent an extra $2 million.
And Mr. Mayor, I would just like to say that Mr. Waring and Mr. Jackson said a lot of what I was going to say. Yeah, but we have citizens coming to us all the time. How come we can't get more tennis courts? How come can't we have a better skate park, which we're going to be discussing soon? Let's get more sidewalks. Let's get better crosswalk areas, lighting for the downtown area, for the historic area. And with COVID and how much that we lost, and even though we got that extra money, we had to put it right back into things that had to be done right away. We're just now catching up. We don't know what this next year is going to bring us. But I've been on council now for several years, and I've seen a couple times where something all of a sudden came up big and we had to shift money around. So we had to take it away from Parks and Rec. We had to take it away from my sidewalk on Lee Street I've been trying to get done for 14 years now. And once again, it's not being done. It's not in the budget for this coming year, hopefully. But, I would say that I am very comfortable at leaving the millage where it is. At least we might be a break even. We might have a little bit of excess. That's great. We can put it into a project that we need. At least we're not having to increase it at this time. I think that the past, I'm not sure how many years back, we actually rolled back the millage. I think it was 2 years in a row. And at the time, we didn't see that it was going to hurt us, but it came back to bite us in the long run. So I think this is the best decision for our town, our residents, and going forward and getting these projects done that we so desperately and they want.
Any other comments?
If I understand you correctly, you're saying let's go for the 6.8 millage and keep there'll be no increase.
The motion was to maintain the current millage as approved during our budget ordinance of 66 mills. Not to increase that millage rate or decrease. The motion was to keep it at 66.
Want to be clear.
Yes, sir. Any other discussion?
I would just like to add, there is additional revenue that we are not taking advantage of through CTC funding. There is additional tax savings we are not taking advantage of. And if this does pass, I do hope that council and that we can work together to still access that additional funding and those tax savings.
Thank you, Councilwoman. A couple quick comments before we call for the vote, because I haven't weighed in yet. I think Councilman Halter hit the nail on the head that we have to face the facts. In reality, what we're doing when we maintain this millage rate is we are having our residents pay more for their current services. And that's a difficult decision, and we need to be real with that decision. At the end of the day, every single thing we purchase has gone up as well. And our services and our staff, our exceptional staff, do a fantastic job of serving our citizens And there's a price that comes with that. And to maintain that level of service. You know, our current year budget, Councilman Jackson pointed out, $2 million of general fund money was used to provide the capital we need to keep this town moving forward. We've discussed and we talked about it at Finance Committee, establishing a capital fund and a multi-year capital plan, which is going to continue to be worked on. We need an infrastructure plan that's prioritized as well. I think Councilwoman Johnson Wilson, I agree with you 100%. We need to maximize our use of other people's money. And all of us, as the stewards of this town, we need to use our influence and support our staff in getting those dollars and putting them to work for our citizens. So I agree with that 100%. I do believe it's irresponsible for us to reduce our millage, recognizing the facts that were presented right there. The cost of doing business is going up and it's far outpacing the cost of this increase in revenue. So we're without growth, without those strategic annexations, without our business community thriving, we're essentially on a sinking ship. And then we're just voting on how to arrange the chairs as we go down. And that's not the expectation of our citizens. So with that, I'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Discussion of location for new skate park.
As we speak about money, I would like to delay this because we may spend $50,000 on a plan that we can't afford to do. So, I make a motion that we move this till after the vision plan and find out if we can actually do it or not.
I'd second that.
All right, motion in a second to defer this until after the vision plan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Authorization for Chief Wright to sign a memorandum of understanding with Doors to Freedom for support in moments of emergency.
I make a motion that we sign this memorandum of understanding with Doors to Freedom.
Second.
Motion in a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Authorization for Town Administrator to execute an agreement with Dorchester School District 2 for school resource officers and canines upon final fee calculation.
I make a motion, we approve that.
That's Mr. Mayor.
All
Second.
right, we have motions and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Mayor, if I may, before we go to public comments,
Yes, sir.
I am confused with items 10A and B. We made a vote to make all committees 7 people appointed, recommended by each of the council people. And then in section B, we took that away because we voted to put 5 people on the BAR. So which one are we going to do?
What we did, Councilman, is we put a requirement that those folks be from the historic district. You still get to have your appointee. However, depending on when it's your time to appoint someone, you may have to appoint someone who's in the historic district based on the applications that come in.
Yeah, they were
Still 7 members.
There's still 7 members.
Yeah, but we're not really appointing the people that we would like to represent our districts. It's only the historic district that gets represented.
Similar to other boards where you have a requirement for an architect.
Well,
Or an
I
engineer.
get that.
Yes,
It's
sir.
required that they come. Matter of fact, for those boards, we go to other counties so that we can get qualified people. But on this board, we're going to say that 5 people have to come from one locality and tell everybody else in town what to do. I don't think that's fair. I think I would have voted against A.
I don't think it's fair either.
Thank you
I
for your
guess-
comments. We can add
Have
that
you-
to a future agenda at
But-
this point in time.
Well, I think, GW, I can call for a revote on that before the meeting ends, correct? Because I know Aaron voted opposite what he just said he wanted.
Corporation Counsel, help me navigate the Roberts Rules of
What-
Order.
If you're on top five, you can bring
Doesn't the ordinance have to, doesn't it have to go for two? Isn't it gonna be heard twice?
That's right.
So you'll have,
Yeah, I think we'll have time to see this again. This is gonna be come up for a few months, so.
Thank you for your comments.
We're becoming a big city.
Okay, Ms. Beth.
I don't have anyone signed up for public comment, so next is executive session, executive session.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move that we and go to an executive session to discuss personnel matter related to the appointment of the planning commission and discussion of legal matters related to cyber ransomware attack.
I'll second.
Motion and a second to go into executive session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed?